guys, it's Lizzie. So I'm in Canada right now. Hey guys, it's Lizzie. So I was in Canada this weekend, Alberta, Canada, in a city called Calgary. I was speaking at this young adult conference called One Rock 2.0 with Patrick Coffin and Holdsworth. They're both super active on YouTube, social media, way more big deal than I am, and I was so honored and excited to kind of be with them speaking. I really want to talk about my experience with Canadian culture as an American and just kind of the behind the scenes of the whole conference that no one knew about.
What if I made up my mind to rely on you? I thought I wanted it easy, but easy never needed you.
We were talking about it on Sunday when we were just hanging out, but it literally seemed like spiritual warfare because of everything that happened before and behind the scenes. First off, I want to say that yes, it was filmed. Other talks I do are filmed as well. I will try to film every single talk I do to upload to YouTube. It just takes a long time for people to send footage. This was the biggest speaking engagement I've ever done. My other talks have been 30, 50 people, not an entire crowd with mics. I think there were 500 or 600 people there. One of the coolest parts for me was getting to be surrounded by bishops, the archbishop, all these priests. The room where they got into their vestments was the same room where all the speakers and behind the scenes people were hanging out. Canadian Catholic leadership is the opposite of clericalism. Everyone was so chill and humble, and I'm not saying they're more humble than other bishops and priests, but just extremely down to earth and calm. They were having, it looked like some kind of important meeting with the archbishop and all the bishops of that archdiocese, and I just walk in the room to get something and it's super chill. Like, they don't care that I'm in there, and when all the priests were getting ready for mass and everything, it's just so chill. And even the way they do mass, I don't know how to explain it, but Americans are very, very, very intense. And so when we think about mass, every single moment is so serious and intense and spiritual. But Canadian culture is less confrontational, more calm and chill and slow. And so even the way the priests were standing during mass, in the US, it's like really intense, perfect posture, so into it. And during the mass I attended with the archbishop, bishops, all these priests, just the way everyone was standing was more relaxed and calm and simple and humble. And I literally felt like this is what it must have been like when Jesus was with the apostles at the Last Supper. It wasn't this super serious, intense thing. They were just friends and having a meal together, celebrating the Passover, instituting the Eucharist, but it wasn't this huge, big deal, so intense, so passionate. You know what I mean? It was simple and humble. And the mass was just really, really long. It was probably twice as long as it is in the US. And I remember even getting kind of stressed and frustrated during it. And I don't like that I felt like that, but it's just so long and calm and in the moment, enjoying it, marinating on every part. The thing that stood out to me the absolute most was the communion. It was 4 times as long as any going up and receiving the Eucharist I've ever been to. And I've been to huge masses, LA Cathedral, Basilica in DC, with thousands of people, and communion is just so fast. We have conversations in the US. People's argument for altar rails is it's so much faster when we all kneel together. People will cut out the wine just because it's faster if we don't do wine. But in Canada, they have no care in the world, and they're just going up, receiving communion. The priest looks at everyone probably for 3 seconds longer than any mass in the US I've ever been to. And even the way people cross themselves, it's so slow. Like in America, people are like that after mass, and in Canada, they're like, you know what I mean? They're very relaxed and chill and in the moment, and it's just a slower culture. America is so intense, working schedule, speeding up, busy and intense, and schedule and time is money. It's just this capitalistic, really strong work ethic culture. And so the mass in Canada was just so peaceful and slow and calm, and it was really cool seeing the cultural difference. Another thing I like about Canadian culture is people are less angry and getting in fights in public. Literally anytime I'm in public in the US, if I'm walking across a crosswalk and I don't see a car, you know, they'll flip me off. If I'm in line at a store and someone thinks I'm cutting them in line, they'll kind of like yell at me. People in America are just always angry, always irritated in public, just so upset and stressed. And in Canada, maybe they push their emotions down, but the way they talk to people, it just seems like they're more at peace, so much less confrontational, and I really appreciate that. One experience I had when I was on the airplane from the US to Canada, the flight attendant is Canadian, and I had to switch places with a mom and her baby because the seat she was assigned didn't have the extra airbag for a baby. So the stewardess is like, hey, I'm really sorry, but can you switch to this other seat? So sorry, I hope it's okay. And I was just like, yeah, of course, I'm switching from one window seat to another window seat. I literally don't care. It literally doesn't matter. But this Canadian is just like, I'm so sorry, is it okay? The way we have conversations too, in Canada, I feel like conversations kind of linger on and on. In the US, it's like efficiency. Say what you need to say in as little time as possible. And so in having conversations with people, like I said with Mass, it almost stresses me out because I'm someone who has such a strong work ethic and is working constantly and trying to speed up things as much as possible. Even the way I do my videos, I talk so fast. And so it's just relaxing and calming being in a place where people are more in the moment than we are in the US. I really want to talk about the behind the scenes of the conference because if you attended, you have no idea what was happening. I think when you experience spiritual warfare, it's kind of a sign that what you're doing for God is going to be so powerful and fruitful, and how it's impacting people and growing the faith and drawing people closer to God. Whenever spiritual warfare happens, it's because what's about to happen is going to be so spiritually powerful in how God works. If you guys watched the Q&A I did with Patrick Coffin, I may have seemed really bored or not into it, but I was so exhausted and done because I hadn't slept for 70 hours. I slept for 2 hours in a 70-80 hour time frame. But to start off, everything chaotic behind the scenes. So the main director of the event got in a car accident the week before, and she's fine, but she couldn't do any more for the event, like someone else was in charge of emailing. So that caused a lot of kind of logistical difficulties. Then my flight and Patrick's flight are delayed 3.5 hours. I was able to call Burbank Airport and get put on another flight that goes from LA to Denver to Alberta. It was so last minute. There was so much traffic. I get to the airport, and since I had transferred my flight, they had to talk on the phone for like 20 minutes getting me my boarding pass, and I get there and I was a minute before the gate closed. Same exact thing that happened to Patrick. He was flying to San Francisco and he ran to his layover and the plane had just closed and he couldn't get on. And so he got to Canada at 11 p.m., maybe later than that. And he lost his laptop on the plane. He ended up finding it, but there was this huge thing where he lost his laptop. Then I forget my medicine. I pulled an all-nighter the night before because my flight was in the morning, and I literally left my medicine at home. So I am so manic and I do not sleep. I remember the morning of the conference when I was about to leave for the venue, praying and telling God, this is all you if this works and I'm able to speak. I literally cannot do this. If it goes well, this is all God. So I get to the event the next day, and when you're manic, you have so much energy and passion, but I got to a point where after 60 hours, I crashed like an hour before the event, and I am so out of reality and exhausted. I tell them I cannot do my event. I just had no energy, exhausted. It was so weird as well. I was so nauseous. I could not eat. My skin had a rash on it and my skin is not sensitive at all. Just my health was awful. I wasn't eating. I couldn't sleep. And then Brian, the other speaker, did not sleep well the night before. A lot of people on the AV crew. I feel like I could go on and on with everything that was going on behind the scenes. So like I said, I prayed the morning of because I was in no condition to speak. Told everyone that when I got there. And it was hilarious. Patrick is like, I have 7 talks ready to go, don't worry. So they literally were talking to everyone, finding a replacement for me because I didn't think I was going to be able to speak because I hadn't slept in 60 hours. But what was so amazing and what could never happen in the US is they had a medic on site. And so when we get to the venue, I immediately talk to him. He texts his psychiatrist friend and they get me my bipolar meds and I take my meds. This is all within the span of 4 hours. I just immediately immediately get my bipolar meds because the Canadian healthcare system is so chill. But the point is, I got my medicine immediately. So I slept for 3 hours, still couldn't eat, ended up doing my speaking event. It was so amazing. I love public speaking. I started planning it over summer. So it was amazing, prepping, practicing for so long, and finally getting to present it. I do this thing where I have 100 slides for an hour. I think I had 96 slides for this talk, but literally I put so much heart, passion into it. So it was so amazing finally seeing the result of that. And then the way it happened, Patrick, Brian, and my talk, we were all talking about how horrible the Enlightenment is, basically, and individualism, all these things. And so Brian and I switched our speaking order, and they were all saying that me being at the end kind of tied in all the talks. And so it was so cool that it felt like everything was going wrong in spiritual warfare, but then God worked in it, and it was even better because everything horrible was happening. But it was so amazing doing mass with so many priests and bishops, and just being able to casually be around all of these people. Like I said, it's the opposite of clericalism. They just seem so humble, calm, and just like any other person. And I'm not saying priests in the US aren't like that, but it was just so the most anti-clericalism you could ever think of. And it's really great being able to see that after all the horror going on in the church with the sex abuse crisis, the way some bishops and priests see it as a power game and use their power in such an evil way. So it was just really positive, kind of gave me so much hope to see that in this archdiocese, the leadership, and there were so many young priests too I got to talk to, and it was just so encouraging and beautiful seeing that there are leaders who are so hardworking but so humble. I also really love the baptistry at this parish. It was amazing. So it was in the shape of a cross, but it was huge, 15 feet and like 50 feet. I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating, but it was huge and like 5 feet deep. And it's so cool because in the early church, they would have a baptistry in the shape of the cross. And I'm really into full immersion because that was kind of the default in the first century, and my Protestant church really emphasized full immersion. So anytime I see a full immersion baptistry, I'm so happy. One of my favorite things too is that all of this event was on Saturday, and then on Sunday, the speakers and some of the behind the scenes people, we hung out all day and saw the mountains and waterfalls and had meals together and just hung out. And we literally became like family. It was so fun. We just debated politics and church issues, gun rights, pronouns, abortion, healthcare. We just talked about all the church controversy, Pope Francis, Vegano, everything that has been going on or that has happened in the church. My relationship with my family is we just debate politics and philosophy and theology. And so this group of people where we all hung out together on Sunday, it literally felt like family because we were just debating everything. And it was so interesting having majority Canadians in for these conversations because Canada is socialist, a lot more liberal. I really love socialism and have my entire life, and I almost idolize socialist governments like Canada and Europe. Hearing the way that their education system is really positive but also kind of brainwashes people, talks about Catholicism and just religion in a really negative light. It was so fascinating hearing their perspectives on their healthcare system, education, the way money is distributed among the provinces, how a really big percentage are Indigenous, Native American, and the politics within that. I just absolutely love politics. So it was so fascinating just talking to all of them for hours and learning all these things about Canadian politics, church politics, everyone's perspective. It was just so amazing. Sunday was so fun, and since I'm so young and new to the church, I became so much more Catholic and so much more catechized and understanding different church issues because of Patrick and Brian and everyone else who was there. And we talked about families, how everyone met the person who they're married to, kids, NFP, RCIA experiences. We just talked about everything, and I just felt like I learned so much wisdom from everyone there. And in the future, if I get married and have kids, I feel like I can ask all these people for parenting advice. You know what I mean? I feel like I learned so much. I felt so taken care of and supported and close to everyone at the event. And then we had a private mass together, and it was so beautiful. And my favorite thing is that they had Christian art but in Canada. So they had the mountains in the background, and they had Mary holding a ski pole. You know what I mean? They made the pictures bringing Christianity into their culture. And the nativity scene, they had a moose at the nativity scene. It was so perfect and so Canadian. I loved it. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!